we played basketball together and having that kind of healthy obsession for,
A long
um,
time.
yeah, but, wanting to be, a pro athlete. I think, when I started, that was my goal. But, um, to be honest with you, I think once you see how the soup is made, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, this is a
Really?
lot. Yeah, man. I always thought that it was, I guess because, you're not like, I'm not the athlete. I didn't play. So, being involved as a photographer, you're there to work. And so, there's a lot of, hustle that has to go into that environment. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you kind of see all that's involved, and all the, the political things, dealing with PR people and managers and agents and, entourages, security guards. Like, you're just kind of like, oh man, this is really what it is. But,
Crazy.
I would say it's because of what I do. Capturing it has definitely made me have that, like, appreciation for, like, athleticism and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I think the environment, it's kind of like, okay, it's not all glitz and glamour like people probably think.
Sure.
Uh,
We just see the tip of the iceberg.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
100%.
exactly. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that goes on, but yeah.
All right. So, for those of you who are just tuning in, thank you for patiently standing by. Before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsor. So, the sponsor for our interviews and our podcasts and our all of our virtual meetings is Simple Mortgage, and their website is Get Simple Mortgage. That organization is led by Omar Abich, and he is a phenomenal mortgage broker with years and years of experience in the business. So, if you are looking to get a purchase, if you're looking to purchase a home, if you're looking to do a refinance, if you're looking for a home equity line, reverse mortgage, you name it. Get Simple Mortgage can handle that for you. Again, their website is simplemortgage.com, and it's led by Omar Abich, broker. Today, I am really excited because I have a chance to bring on a really lifelong friend, somebody I've known for a long time since we were teenagers. And watching his journey has just been amazing. I get to watch it. Well, I guess I shouldn't use that analogy from the sidelines because you're literally on the sidelines. So I would feel fake saying something like that. But Robert and I grew up in the community of Eagle Rock, Northeast Los Angeles, El Sereno too, right, Rob?
Yeah,
Yeah, in
yeah.
that community. And we played high school basketball together. Um, we were yell leaders together for a while. And early on in high school, and I'll let him share his story, but he just took to photography. And I remember seeing how passionate he was about it and just how serious he was about it. And lo and behold, years later, Robert is one of the most successful and iconic photographers in the sports world, in sports and entertainment. Rob, or because I know you do concerts as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say sports primarily, but yeah, I've been pretty fortunate to work in a lot of different areas of the entertainment industry. But yeah,
got it.
I mean,
You
I
know,
would say the same thing, man. Like, about you, though. I mean, like, I've, obviously kept up with your success. So I think I see you and I'm like, man, I got to get my act together.
yeah, right.
Like,
Not even close. Not
no,
even
man,
close.
you hustle, and I love that. I love that so much, man.
We were cut from the same cloth, man. And there's a
Yeah,
reason that you and I became friends
yeah,
and did a lot of the same things.
no, for sure.
Playing basketball. Hey, I didn't tell you. Um, one year, I don't know what was going on. I think you were busy, but I invited you to one of our company Christmas parties, and I think I told you who showed up, right?
Was it Shaq that showed up?
No, no,
Was
no.
it?
Uh,
Let me guess.
Coach
Michael
Joe
Jordan?
Whiting.
No, no. Coach Whiting. Yes, Coach Whiting. I think it's funny that you say that, because I feel like he had a very big impact on, like, my mentality, as far
Huge,
as, yeah,
huge.
um, yeah. I think he came in. He came in when, what, we were sophomores, um,
Yeah, I think
right?
so. No, no, no. He had been there before that.
Had
He had
he?
been there. Yeah, yeah. He'd been there
Okay,
before.
because I didn't remember knowing him too much until, like, it was like I wanted to advance past that, past, like,
By the
that sea
time
level.
we were already like sophomores or juniors, that's when he was kind of on his way out. And I'm not even sure if he had gotten, maybe he did have his doctorate. We weren't
Okay.
calling him doctor back
Yeah.
then. He's Dr. Bill Whiting now.
Yeah. It's
Um,
crazy.
and I remember writing a blog post on LinkedIn
Uh-huh.
about him on delayed gratification. Remember the drills where we would rotate the ball across the perimeter,
Okay.
the three
Uh-huh.
point line, and you couldn't shoot until it had been, rotated at least 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
And that was my analogy to like delayed gratification and
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding that, like, yeah, the ball has to rotate.
Yeah.
He found that article on
That's
LinkedIn and
funny.
then reached out to me, and I had him come over to our company.
That's hilarious, man.
Right?
No, so he,
Did I lose you? I
am I
think I
still?
lost you for a little bit, bud.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. He had given me a book by John Wooden to read,
Oh.
and that was very,
Pyramid of
very.
Success?
I don't remember what it was called, to be honest with you. I just remember at the time I was very obsessed with like a little bit of the tactics of the game, and
Yeah, yeah.
but what I didn't realize was a lot of the things that were in there was the mentality, the motivation, and like I remember reading it and being like, dang, this is like, yeah, like you just get kind of inspired and sort of hyped up for what you were doing. Unfortunately, I wasn't talented enough to continue, athletically, but yeah, man, that was had a huge impact on me at the time for sure. You
Got it.
know,
Well,
yeah,
listen, before we get into like, the glitz and the glamour of what you do, and I'm sure that there's going to be, I'm checking comments. So if I don't look directly at the camera, it's only because I've got dual screen. So I'm also monitoring some of the comments that are coming in
for sure.
on the platforms. Um, Before we get into that stuff, what I'd like to do is I borrowed a series of questions from a book by Tim Ferriss called Tools of the Titans. And
Cool.
these questions are all the questions that he likes to ask on his podcast and on his interviews. And I thought they were really, really good, thought provoking questions.
Yeah,
So I've
definitely.
sent these questions to Rob. And just so that everybody can get a better idea of him and his personality before we get into the business side of things, what I'd like to do is we'll go over those questions with the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, um, what are 1 to 3 books? I know you just shared the John Wooden one, but 1 to 3 books that you or that have impacted your life, or books that you like to give out to other people and have
Yeah.
them read.
I don't really give books, to be honest with you. I've given it out, I think, maybe a couple times, but for me, it's the Bible.
Mm,
There's another book called Five Temptations of a CEO and Tell to Win by Peter Guber. It's been a long time since I've looked at those, but I mean, those impactful for sure. I
all
should
right.
give them
I'm gonna
out.
try to get them on Audible.
Yeah.
Five Temptations of a CEO. That one sounds good. And the
Yeah,
Bible.
I'm not a CEO, but as far as like somebody who has evolved into being in a leadership position, I think it's incredibly relevant. So
Hmm, that's a
yeah,
good one.
yeah,
And I'm
absolutely.
glad you mentioned the Bible. You know, what's funny is that I did a few interviews, just a couple interviews, actually just one interview ago, and my guest said the exact same thing. So now you
Oh
guys are the
yeah,
two. Yeah, you guys are the first. He was the first. You were the second one to say Bible.
yeah,
So that's,
no, for
yeah,
sure. It's at the heart of everything for me. So yeah,
that's awesome, man.
yeah, brother.
Okay, what purchase of $100 or less, and it can be something simple, $100 or less. That's something that you can't live without now, or something that you use every day, or something that that you even in your business, $100 or less.
Okay, so I don't use it every day, like thinking about that, but and it's absolutely super silly because when I sort of first saw these kind of coming back around, I was just like, what is going on? But it's actually a fanny pack. And I do not wear a fanny pack every day. It's just not my style. I remember kind of being younger. I think I was just impacted by seeing family members or other people wear them. And I was
Right.
like, that's just silly. However, because of what I do, I usually have a lot of camera gear on me,
Sure.
and sometimes I have backpacks in addition to the cameras. If I'm at an event, kind of needing to move around sort of freely. But what I realized was I'm carrying a backpack just to carry a few simple things. And I was like, it's kind of overkill. And so I was thinking about, okay, how can I just sort of, you know, keep this on me to maintain, some simple things. And I was like, well, I should probably just invest in a fanny pack. And bro, like, seems silly,
I
but
believe it.
I mean, and it's kind of ironic that I wear it when I'm most around the most amount of people, since I'm not really a big fan of it. But yeah, I mean, being able to put, just one lens and a few sheets of paper with like the shot list I have, or a Sharpie and stuff that I got to check off for things that I need to get. I mean, I actually had told myself, man, that was a pretty good investment. So now I don't wear it every day. Some people do. I know there's a European thing with like the man purse, that like it's at a high level where people got like the nice Louis Vuitton ones and all that stuff. We had players that show up to games in those, and I'm just like, yeah, it's not my style, but man, it's effective.
It works.
It's a,
Yeah.
yeah.
When we were growing up, though, you only wore it around the waist, and
Yeah.
now they wear it across their
They
chest.
went across the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. I see that. And so it's like, I don't know, but then you're opening yourself up to people saying you're wearing a man purse. You're wearing a man
Yeah.
purse, so, yeah, I'm just kind of self-conscious that way. So I don't, but like I said, I wear it when I'm around the most amount of people, which is when I'm working, because it's so awesome. But yeah.
Cool. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So, what is what might be perceived as a failure or a setback that really was a launching pad for your success?
So the one major one that I can think of early on when I was working for the Lakers in the NBA was my boss at the time, Andy Bernstein, was out of town. And the team had just signed Phil Jackson as their head coach. And I got a call from the people at the NBA, and they said, hey, we need to get a headshot of Phil Jackson right away. You need to go there first thing tomorrow morning. Be ready. He's just coming in. It was at the Forum at the time, and he's coming in, get him in, get him out. And I was like, okay. And so the thing for me was that it was really the first time for me to be on my own, where I didn't have, my boss looking over my shoulder and making sure that I was doing things right. And so I said, it's Phil Jackson. Like, yeah, I have to do something incredible. And so I took the liberty of wanting to make like a more creative type of portrait of him, as opposed to basically just doing what they had asked for, which was like a straightforward standard headshot, two lights, looking at the camera, boom, 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 done. Well, I was into this sort of like, top lighting and dramatic look. And so I lit it that way. And it was an interesting dramatic portrait, but the problem was with the way I lit it, there was very deep shadows under his eyes. And so, shooting film at the time wasn't digital, completely at that time. I shot the film, sent it off to the NBA, and like I got a phone call the next day, like just irate, like, what the were you doing? How could you, like it's a headshot, and how could you? Because I had shot headshots before, they knew that I could do it, and so they trusted me. And they're like, we have to send this to, because I didn't see it. Like I didn't see the picture because it was film. And,
Sure.
it wasn't at the time, it wasn't, as simple as take it to the lab, develop it, look at it, and then send it. It's like, no, you had to send the film off to the NBA. And so I just remember like almost crying, thinking that I was going to get fired, that I was going to never be able to work for them again, because I had just was so naive in thinking that I could take liberty and that it would be okay, that I could just give them that and
How old were
not
you at the
really.
time?
I want to say I was probably 19. Yeah, at the time.
19
Yeah,
years
right?
old.
No. I was older than that. I'm sorry. No, I was probably about 20. Yeah. Um,
20, 20 years
yeah.
old,
Yeah, no, I
taking
was young,
photos for
man,
the
but
NBA, dude.
yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing is that one was a very to like to this day that's in my system as like get what the client needs, do what they need, and then take liberty to which looking back at it, I'm like, what an idiot. Why didn't I just do what they needed and then do what I wanted? But at the time I was like, okay, I only have, I mean, dude, like he sat down, he was sitting down probably for like 45 seconds. I'm not even kidding. Like these dudes, they want to be in and out. You're done. And, I could have just did what was needed, then did what I wanted to do, and it would have been okay. But yeah, man, that was a big lesson for me. Big lesson for me. It could have been over before it even started. So
That's an awesome
yeah,
story, man.
yeah,
That's
man,
that's an awesome story. All
yeah.
right. If if you had a billboard anywhere in the world and millions of eyeballs all day long, what would that billboard say?
So just because I'm, kind of a jerk that way, like I work for the Galaxy. I'm, their team photographer. It's been 17 seasons with the club, and so for me, I'm going to go ahead and put a big billboard with our logo and the fact that we've won 5 championships right across the street from LAFC's stadium because I know it would drive them crazy. Now, we've actually done that before when we had Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who played for us, one of the biggest, soccer stars in the world. I had taken a photo where he had just, was attacking the goal, and one of their players one of their players tried to get in front of him, and like he just went flying, like his body's sprawled out flying. It was a really cool photo, pretty funny photo. And so we decided to take that photo and put it across the street from their stadium, and it was like, oh man, I mean, you can imagine the phone calls
That's
that they
hilarious.
got, that all the complaints that we got. But so the funny thing is now the billboard that's across the street from their stadium, they purchased in perpetuity. So you can't basically, nobody can,
Ah,
no, that can never happen again
that's
because they
smart.
were so upset about that. But yeah, if I could do that, oh yeah, man, I would. So, and if
For
that's
me,
not
the
an option, I would put it all around, one like smack in the middle of downtown LA.
sure.
So
Uh,
yeah.
I guess it goes without saying. Then you're not a big LAFC fan, yeah?
No, I respect them. I respect them a lot. I do respect them, but like my colors are blue, white, and gold. So
Yeah,
yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah.
that's great. All right. Any quotes that you live your life by?
So I don't really, yeah, I don't really have any quotes as far as um, you know, you know, that just kind of are sort of my mantra or things like that. I do, however, I do like to find quotes based on kind of maybe the season that I'm dealing with or going through. I like to do um, sometimes like when we have a game and we're playing a certain team and I have a shot list and I'm trying to sort of get my photo crew motivated, I'll find a quote that about something that's relevant. Maybe we're going through a losing streak, or maybe we're on a hot streak and we're trying to keep our confidence, or we're trying to stay humble in the work that we're doing. I'll try to find stuff like that. But uh, I like getting Bible verses for me as inspiration. I've got Proverbs as one of them. um, Proverbs 3, 5, 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. So for me, that's one, that's one that I need in particular. But yeah, that would
That's
be
one
the
we
only.
all need. That's a
Yeah, no,
great
for
scripture.
for sure,
Great scripture.
for sure.
Yeah,
So yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
Okay. So we're gonna do a couple more, and then we'll go in. So,
yeah.
what is an unusual habit that you do that people may not peg you for? Or they would never think that that's something that you do.
Yeah, so like, I know some people can be superstitious and I have some coworkers that like when we get on a winning streak, they'll do the same thing. Like they'll start with the same sock or whatever. And it's like, yeah, we don't have anything to do with the effects on the game. But for me, I don't think it's unusual, but it is a little you know, I think that some of my colleagues are just kind of like, yeah, I don't know why you do that, but like before a game starts, I will pound a 5 hour energy shot. And like, it's just like, I got my whole crew doing that. I do it. And it's just something that I'm more alertness. Um, Not the best for your sleep that night, but it's like, that's kind of just some quirky thing that I do is, you know, I've had fans, like post photos. There's like, oh, there's Robert Mora doing his shot at the field. Like, bro, like now I got people noticing. Like that's kind of but
It would
yeah,
not shock me to hear all of a sudden you get some type of an endorsement deal
I
as a result.
I've been trying to get those people, man.
Really?
I spend a lot of money on their products. 5 hour energy, man. Like it's
Let me
like,
see what I can do.
yeah, oh, okay, yeah, man.
Yeah,
Like,
so let's see what we can do.
yeah,
We'll arrange something.
I'm
Okay,
all about it.
last question.
Yeah, yeah.
What advice would you give to a someone who's trying to get into your field, right? Let's say, look, man, I know you went to the fine wine of art schools and at the art center, right? And which, by the way, everybody was so excited for when we all heard that you had gotten
Oh,
accepted.
thanks, man. Appreciate
Um,
that.
uh, but what would you say to someone who wants to get into your field? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, man. Like, I think that a lot of people, um, and I kind of blame our generation. I think because I'm not really a big fan of the, trophy participation or the
Mm,
participation trophy thing. Like, so I think sometimes, and I think, for you, where you got part of your work ethic is like, yo, man, I have to go after it. I have to do it. I have to make this happen. And so I kind of have the same mentality, and I try to impart that on people who come to me or students that I have that ask for, some bit of advice. It's like, look, you know, um, it's super easy just to fall into the I want it quick, I want it now, we want everything to happen, but you have to be willing to put in your time and put the work in to do it. So that's one component of it, but I also really
I think I lost you, bud.
it might be my internet.
I hear you now.
You hear me now? All right.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. It's okay.
It's super windy over here. My internet might be going in and out, but yeah, the other component of that is I try to get people to understand that whatever it is that you decide to do, if it's in particular in the field of photography, like if a photographer wants to shoot weddings, if a photographer wants to shoot sports, if a photographer wants to shoot real estate, it's like you have to be really invested in that, like personally, to be willing to give your client the best possible product. Like if you're serving them, if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, like, I am genuinely trying to make this outstanding, good, make this client happy, then you're going to thrive. Like, I genuinely believe that, because when you give a good service to people, they appreciate that. They will, you know, they will not look at you as somebody who's just trying to take their money or, and then they end up, like, a lot of times, and I found this in my career, and I'm sure you have as well, is they end up becoming evangelists for you, because, like, you just think of your own habits as far as buying things. When you find something good, you want to share it with people. You want to, oh, dude, like I got the greatest iPhone cover. Like you got to go get one of these. And you just end up at being on the right side of people. And if whether you're in a service industry or you have a product, like I genuinely try to impart to people, like you have to be um, willing to work, and you have to be willing to make sure that the service or the product that you're giving someone is going to make them happy and it's going to be good for them. So
100%.
yeah.
100%. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good way to end our questions, or those the tools of the Titans questions that I borrowed from Tim Ferriss. If you're just joining us, you guys, I have a professional sports photographer, Robert Mora, who is here with me on our virtual interview, our virtual podcast. And now, what I'd like to do is start going into. Let's go through the journey, right? How do you get from high school photography student out of Eagle Rock, Los Angeles, California, to NBA photographer, hanging out with Shaq, Phil Jackson, Kobe, and now, LA Galaxy chief photographer, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay. So walk me through that. How do we go from where you were a student at Mr. Kaufman's class, right,
Yeah.
in Eagle Rock High School? And by the way, here's the crazy part. I was part of that class too,
Were you
right?
in that class?
Yes, I took.
That's
We were,
awesome, brother.
we were doing everything together. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was a part
Okay.
of that class too. I remember being in the dark room.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
thinking, I mean, there's a black
You
and
were
white.
in that class.
I told you.
Oh,
Yes,
dude. Now I'm trying to think of all the people who were in that class.
there was a
That's
lot.
crazy.
There was a few. Remember Tony? Tony was in that. Tony Squire
Okay.
was in that class with us. There was a few, but obviously you excelled. I mean, you had an eye for it. You had a passion for it. You had a talent for it. I mean, we were just taking, pictures of our hands, like
Yeah.
but so
Well,
yeah,
I was gonna say, bro, like, what was your reason for taking that class?
it was an elective, and it seemed like it was.
Same. I did the same thing, man. Like, and that's what's so wild is because, like I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to keep my grades high enough. And, I don't know if you remember Matt Gelb.
Come on,
Yeah. So he was
baseball
like,
player.
yeah, he's like, bro,
Oh,
take
I think
photography, easy A. I'm like, really? And because he had just taken it. He's like, easy A. It's super easy. You should take it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it because, like, I mean, all my other grades, like, I was not coasting through that stuff. And so, yeah, so I took photography.
he froze again.
I don't know, like, there wasn't like just some light bulb that went on. It was just sort of a gradual kind of like, I'm good at this. Like, I think I want to do it some more. And then it just started to become a little bit of an obsession for me.
Oh, it consumed you.
Yeah.
It consumed you.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm trying to remember, but I know you had a camera with you at all times.
Yeah.
Almost at all times. There was a time where you had a basketball with you at all times, and then that
Yeah.
switched to a camera
Yeah.
with you at all times. So it was you had
Yeah, man.
basketball, and then you switched to cameras, and that was it. That you lived it. You ate it. You slept it. You breathed it.
Yeah. And as I reflect back on that stuff, like, I kind of have tried to see, where maybe, I could have done more, or, advice that I can give to younger people on how to sort of get to that point. But I think a lot of these people, like I look at like Dr. Dre, like when he was young, he was obsessed. He was always making beats. He was always doing stuff like that. And then, other people in these fields, they develop an obsession. And so, like, I think that for me was, I ended up stumbling upon the recipe, which was just to obsess over it and put in the time to, just figure out everything about the craft. And so, yeah, I was doing it. I was able to keep the grades, and at a certain point, I realized, okay, well, yeah, I think because I have no other talent or ability, I think I want to go to school for this. And art center was my goal. And so probably from halfway through our sophomore year, I started, working toward that, building toward that, and graduated, got in. I ended up having to wait to go. I think I waited maybe like another, maybe a few semesters, but I ended up going. And so for the first 3 terms that I was at art center, I still loved basketball. I still loved the Lakers. I still, it was still my thing that I cared so much about. So as I was developing into like,
Last thing I heard was developed.
okay, so I wanted to take um, what I had really loved, which was basketball and photography, and merge them. And so what I ended up doing was shooting a lot of basketball players, portraits of them. So at the time, I submitted a lot of that work to the school art center to get a scholarship. And the chairman at the time was like, hey, yeah, I see all your basketball work. Like, do you know who Andy Bernstein is? I'm like, yeah, I had his posters on my wall growing up. Are you kidding me? And he, do some work for him, because at the time, being an assistant was still very important as far as
Sure.
trying to find a career path. I still think it can be a great way. I guess today they'd call it a mentorship. But so, yeah, so he called him, man, and he was like, hey, I got the student. He's really, passionate about basketball. I thought of you. And, so Andy was like, yeah, give him my number. And bro, I kid you not, like, I called him like obsessively. It was back when they had answering machines. It wasn't his cell phone. And I would leave message day after day after day. I mean, no shame. I mean, nowadays people would call the police and be like, okay, the stalker like has to leave me alone. But so I guess Andy's wife had said, hey, call this back so he stops leaving messages. So Andy called me back and said, hey, cool, man. I have some time on this day. Let's meet. We met, we talked. He's like, okay, look, I have an assistant who, I'm good with, but maybe I can bring you on from time to time when I need another person. And so he did, which, to me is like, I mean, I did nothing to deserve that stuff, man. It was just out of the kindness of his heart. So I started working for him as a second, third assistant, more and more and more and more. And then the day came when his first assistant, Garrett Elwood, left to go be the team photographer for the Charlotte Hornets. And so he said to me, hey, look, you've put in the work. You want to be my main guy? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And, that was hard for some time because, at first I was like, dude, coming to games, like, there wasn't the budget for like a second assistant. So I said, look, I'll work for free. I'll come, I'll help out. I just want to learn. And so I made the time, and he said, okay, and I learned a lot about professionalism. I learned, just what he was doing and how I wanted to imitate what he was doing. And granted, I didn't see myself getting into actual sports action photography, but I saw it as a way to get in to be able to do portraits of those players. Is if I can shoot the action, then I can probably get to do portraits, because that's what Andy was doing. He would, and one of the first jobs that I had worked with him on was like for DirecTV, shooting that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it just ended up growing and growing. And as I had been proving myself, he would give me more responsibilities. The NBA saw what I was capable of, and they were giving me more responsibilities. They were like, hey, in addition to you being the main assistant for Andy Bernstein and traveling with him and shooting all this stuff, like, we want to start sending you out on your own. And so I was given those opportunities, and I would shoot a lot of Laker games and a lot of Clipper games on my own. At the time, I was also the photography operations supervisor at the new Staples Center that had just been built. So I oversaw a lot of the photography that was happening there. I was also one of the LA Kings team photographers because Andy had that contract. So, it was it was a crazy life, man. Like it was one of those things where it all just kind of snowballed and happened, and I was into it, doing it. And when you're younger, when you have more free time and you can put in the hours, it was great, man. And yeah, being part of those teams with Shaq and Kobe and Phil Jackson, like, I mean, there for me, there's like no recipe to how to replicate that. I mean, I know it was all by God's grace, and I know that I put in the work to do that stuff, man. But like, it, I genuinely was obsessed with that. Like, I wanted to be one of the best at those things, and working for somebody like Andy Bernstein, who is the best, who is one of the most iconic photographers in the history of photography. Dude, I couldn't have learned from anybody better. And he put a lot more of the work ethic, a lot more of the push that I needed. And I was in that environment. I was absorbing, like, you know, Kobe, Shaq. I mean, those were the guys at that time. Um, More so Shaq at that time. Um, but yeah, that dude Kobe Bryant, man, he was doing things. I was like, man, that kid is, man, he's something else. Like, he's still at the gym, or he's doing this, or why is he, you know? And slowly I started taking some of that stuff from him. I was like, oh, okay, like, all right, Kobe, like, all right, next game, like, watch, I'm gonna get something good of you. And dude, a lot of the stuff that I had sold, a lot of the memories that were made, the moments that I captured were of Kobe. That ended up becoming more sort of like iconic, I guess. And the way I started making more money was like a lot of the Kobe stuff was selling. But yeah, man, I mean, that was an incredible journey. But you know, it was just because, bro, I love basketball,
Yeah.
I love photography, like, and mixing the two. Um,
There's
yeah,
so many nuggets there. So many nuggets. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna try to paraphrase it.
yeah.
Um, so you got into the art center, and then when you said you were taking portraits of players, who were the players that you were taking portraits of while you were at the art center?
Just like my cousins, like
Got it.
I was just trying to
But this
find
wasn't
people.
you weren't these weren't this wasn't anybody professional. They
No,
weren't professional athletes. These were just athletes.
yeah, yeah. There was
Okay.
just, I think, did I get? I'm trying to think if you remember the homie Ray Archangel. Okay,
I went to elementary school with him.
okay, yeah. I think I had gotten some portraits of him. Like, there was just a lot of
I
different
remember
people.
you getting portraits of Raymond while we were in high school.
Yeah, yeah. I like just a lot of whoever I can find that played, and a lot of it was kind of raw, um, you know, dudes that were highly okay, cut off.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Shirts and
So
skin style, raw. And
that's fun.
yeah, man. And so it was just people that I would meet, at school that played ball, people at the park, from like Eagle
So
Rock Park.
you used whatever you had as your resource, whatever
Yeah.
was available to you at the time. And I think that's important, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people, especially this generation, and I shouldn't say that because now I feel like I'm sounding like what my parents used to say, but like, uh, um, everybody, I don't have any money, I don't have any
Yeah.
grants, I don't have the
Yeah.
resources, I don't have the tools, I don't have, in I would assume somebody could also argue, I don't have the cameras, I don't have all
Hmm.
that stuff, I don't have the equipment. and you're just using what you had and taking pictures of people in our own neighborhood, in our own community, right? And that's what started it. And then what I really liked, and I think you froze, but what I really liked was what you were saying about calling Bernstein,
Yeah.
right? And making, multiple calls and multiple attempts. This wasn't just you calling once and then that was it. This was you like really, chasing after it. It was almost like a Sylvester Stallone moment where he's outside the producers or movie studios or execs office, sitting there waiting for
Yeah.
them to walk in so he can catch them and trying to pitch his script for Rocky type of a story.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I mean?
mean, bro, it was a different time. Like, I think that you could get away with stuff like that then. I don't know how much you can get away with it now. Um, you know, but I will say that I think, the amount that people pursue stuff, like if they're, because I've had people who continually, send me notes, or DMs or whatever, saying like, oh, dude, like you need an apprentice, do you need somebody to carry your stuff or whatever? And I'll gauge, like I can gauge if they send me multiple things and I'm like, okay, this person's serious about it. Like they're just not
Right.
looking for like an opportunity to get in. They're not just like a fan who, does this stuff that wants to kind of, get access that I could give. Um, so yeah, I gauge somebody's seriousness based on their persistence, but the persistence you have to have, right? I mean, how many times have you found that you just like, no, dude, I'm not gonna take no for an answer. Like, I'm just gonna keep going, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but you
Yeah,
still do it.
a lot of times it doesn't work out. I mean, it's just, it's you get used to, at least in my field, right? There's a certain level of a certain percentage of failure.
Hmm.
Just, but then again, that goes back to sports. We
Yeah.
understand, right? I mean, the top players in the NBA who are 3-point shooters. I mean, other than Steph, I mean, if you're in the
Yeah.
30%, 30 to 40% percentile for your 3-point shots, you're a damn good 3-point shooter. So
Hmm.
I grew up knowing those numbers at like,
Yeah.
6 to 7 times that I make an attempt, I'm probably going to fail.
Yeah.
But it's the 30 to 40% that keep me in the game.
Yeah, and I think, I will own as a parent that I forget that, because even raising my own kids, the tendency is not to let them fail. Is like, okay, like, oh, no, 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 you're doing it wrong. We got, like, um, and so I think that that's, unfortunately, I think that that's where sort of a lot of the people coming up, they get discouraged because they're not used to that, and you can't really blame them, because they haven't really had a lot of that in their life. They're not used to it from a young age, being like, oh,
Sure, sure.
because like we have a lot more advantages than even our parents had, so we try to, not let our kids have to fail. But it actually, I think, kind of
Hinders
reflecting
them.
on it. Yes, yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
100%.
Yeah, I
100%.
agree with that.
Okay, but I only have you for a few more minutes. So
Sure.
um, let's talk about that photo.
Okay.
That photo of Kobe in the shower. How many rings had he? Was that one
That
of the
was his
first ones?
first one.
That was
Yeah.
the first one,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you were there,
Yeah,
and that
man.
was at home.
That was at home. Yeah, that was at Staples
Oh
Center.
man!
Yeah.
So that was the first title that him and Shaq won together. Is that
Yep. Yeah,
correct?
and that was a, dude, that journey was incredible, man. Like, because and one of the, I feel like one of my first big moments capturing was, do you remember the series where it was, Lakers versus Portland conference finals, before they got to that final, was, Kobe threw the ball to Shaq. He caught it. He dunked it,
The
and then
alley oop.
he's screaming, and like he's pointing up.
Yeah.
Like, I got that shot of Shaq, like,
Oh,
and so the journey was crazy, man. And that's the thing that I even tell myself these days, because I've been part of Galaxy Championship. It's the journey. Like, it's not the destination. It's the journey.
that's
And
Kobe's
so,
speech.
yeah, and
That was his
so,
speech.
and that moment when he was in the locker room doing that, and like I was saying before, it's so chaotic. There's so much happening. Like, you've got, players throwing champagne and doing all this stuff. And family coming in, and it's just chaotic. Everybody's hugging, and then in the midst of all that kind of celebration, like he just goes, to a quiet place. And I think, for him, it was a genuine, like, man, like all that work, all that's all he wanted, dude, was to be, because he knew that, like, no matter how great he was, and no matter how, if it was his team or not, like he was going to be evaluated based on his success as far as championships. And, he goes in there and, like, just, you're just like, where do I got to go? And I don't remember how that all kind of came about, but like I flocked in there, my boss, the other photographer, like, so there's different angles of that shot. But I think I remember, for me, just trying to, seeing what they were doing and just trying to do something a little bit different. And I think that's the one that they had chose. And yeah, I was really, I'm glad to be kind of tied to him in that way for that moment, because I probably felt the same way. That was the year that I had done the most amount of games, dude. Like, I want to say that year I did 87 games. Um,
Oh,
87, yeah, 87 basketball games, bro. Like, I mean, I think the full
you were on
season's
the road with them
82.
too. You were traveling with them.
Yeah, that season was a lot of
Wow,
travel for us.
wow.
And so that was between Lakers, Clippers, and then we would go to Portland and do, like, you know, um, Portland and Seattle, or, you know, so some of those, not just Laker and Clipper games.
Got it.
But yeah, man, I mean, that was, for me, it was kind of the same feeling. Like, dude, that was the most amount of work that I've ever put in my life. And to be able to, I mean, I think I celebrated for a week too after that, you know? So yeah, man,
Were you there on the parade?
I was, yeah. And that's the thing, man, is that, like, some of that
Were you
stuff
on the
is,
float getting pictures of
I
them too?
was, I was, yeah.
Oh
And I do
man.
have some video of it too. Like, I think I took video the second year that we won. But yeah, man, I mean, and yeah, if somebody would have told me that when you and I were, trying to make the team back in the ninth grade or whatever, like, I would have been like, yeah, right. Like, but no, man, like, I think I'm saying a lot of it is just, being blessed, but a lot of it was staying faithful to what I genuinely had believed, which was like, do the work, do the work. People, like, if you want to stay here, you got to do the work. And so, yeah, being on the inside as one of the, team guys, it was like, okay, so who's going on the float? Okay, yeah, Andy Bernstein, you're gonna go on the one with Shaq. Robert, you go on the one with Kobe, and so and so will go on the one on the third bus. And yeah, man, I mean, I'll never forget that. Like those were some of those moments, going downtown LA, like, with thousands of people, lines, screaming. I mean, it's hard to do your job. You're like, this is surreal. This is not, this is not real
Yeah, I
life.
believe it.
But yeah, man, it was pretty incredible. So, I'll
So
take that with
listen,
me.
everybody talks about Kobe and his work ethic and all that, and what he did. Did you witness that firsthand? Were you able to see some of that?
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. And I think it was different at that time for him, because at that time and those years, it was about Shaq, because Shaq was so dominant. And, you know, Shaq was just the alpha. And it was hard because Kobe also had a very alpha personality, but he didn't have that respect yet of the team, to where it was like, yeah, um, he can take the team on his back. But obviously, if he wasn't there, those teams don't win.
Sure.
And I think the part of the motivation for him was that he knew that he was the one that could carry that team. And he was like, okay, look, everybody Shaq this, Shaq that. And that, you could tell, was annoying to him, but it never deterred him. He was always, like I'm saying, like, he was always one of the last people on those occasions when I was there at the training facility that was still shooting around, you know, after practice. Everybody's, I'm out of here, dude. You know, like people would bounce. And he's out there working on his left hand. He's out there, you know, in the corner shooting threes with his left hand. Like, you're like, dude, like, come on, what are you doing? You know, like, go rest. Like, you know, you have 4 games in 5 nights this next week. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, I did see some of that, man. And he would
Did
get
he
to
ever
the
give you? Did he ever give you any type of advice or anything like just?
uh not that I can remember. The only advice that he would ever give me is he would say like, "Oh, I'm gonna have some for you tonight. I'm gonna have some for you tonight." Like he would, I'd be like, "Okay, dude, like, yeah, you know, for sure." And sometimes it was, yeah, I mean, I got some insane stuff with him that like the NBA has that I'm just like, man, I wish I could get my hands on some of that stuff. It's just
Yeah.
gold. But yeah, as far as just kind of advice, like, you know, because I had left, you know, around the third championship, and so those years when he really blew up, it was, you know, he had just taken it to the next level, and I wasn't around for a lot of the sort of leadership that he was giving to people. I would have
Right.
loved to have, but he
Sure.
had that quality even when he was younger in those first years. But yeah, I cherish that stuff, man. Cherish it.
Well,
You know.
listen, I appreciate you doing this, Rob. I told you I'd only keep you here for about an hour. Rob
No,
is
for
really
sure,
busy.
brother.
I'm going to check real quick just to see if there were any comments or any insight that Rob might be able to share with anyone.
Sure.
Um, for those of you that were commenting, here's one, Rob. So, okay, so what is for someone who's and this is going to be a tricky question to answer, right? There's no there you your story is going to be different than anybody else's, but what is there a fast track to other than having a mentor to getting in your field? Like, do they have to go to school for that, or are there pros that do what you do that didn't go the same route by going to school and doing that stuff?
Yeah, there's a lot of pros actually that didn't go to school, and even when I got hired at Art Center, the chairman at the time was like, you know, people don't really need to go to school for this, and he's like, it's for people who really want to get that next, take that advantage over people. And I agree. There's so much great content on YouTube or Creative Live or, you know, Pro EDU, whatever, Skillshare that you can learn. As far as like a fast track, I would say there really isn't, um, other than kind of who you know. And I go back to what I said, like your work ethic, like what you're willing to put in and sacrifice. Because even if you're super talented, um, I think one of the biggest things that people need to understand, and having learned the lesson of made the failure, is people have to trust you in this business. You have to have somebody's trust for somebody to give you access, for somebody to be willing to pay you for your services. They have to trust you. It's a massive component of it. And so the photographers that I've brought along, it's been kind of seeing like if they can be trusted, and also seeing their work ethic, and you know, the people that I have been able to have come through my crew, they have those exact things, a great work ethic. They work hard, they put in the time, um, and they're patient, and they're willing. And I, as somebody who's like, look, dude, if it was me, I don't want to lose this person. So I look for opportunities to give them, um, to lead, to make their own decisions, to have a creative say, to be able to grow. Um, but I think, you know, being having a fast track, I'm sure that there's opportunities, but it doesn't necessarily going to serve you long term to get it. Because I will say, bro, having had all of that success at an early age for me, I think was not good for me as a person. because bro, you're doing all these things and you're successful and you're making.
Hold that thought, Rob, because I lost you for a second, and I think this is
My
the
wife, if
end
you
of
knew
this.
me
We're
back
gonna have
then,
to work on that.
if
Go ahead.
you knew me then, you would not have gone anywhere near me because of the person that I was. So sometimes success can be bad, man. Like it can, especially if you don't have the maturity, which I didn't have at my age when I was at the NBA. Like I made a
You're
lot
in
of,
your early 20s. You're in your,
yeah, but I made
you're
bad decisions, like financially, you know, relationship wise. Like it was just, so sometimes it's not good. But now, look, with wisdom, looking back at it, you're like, okay, like so. Sometimes I need to realize that like I should, maybe there's some things I shouldn't have right away. Certain things that I want to come to fruition shouldn't just come so easily in my lap. So yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question
That's
too
great.
well,
That's no.
but
I think those are excellent words of wisdom.
yeah,
Yeah,
thanks,
for
man.
somebody coming in. All right. So the last question that I see right now is, so when you are taking the sports images, uh, are you picking a specific player? Because you've mentioned this before. So you'll have a list of specific shots that you'd like to take,
Uh-huh.
and then you tend to just focus on that player and have the lens focus on that player for a certain number of time, and you're just clicking away, in hopes that you catch the action, or are you planning in advance? I think I'm trying to paraphrase what this comment says. Are you planning in advance and saying, this is where I think the action is going to be? If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So
How
there's definitely some of those elements as far as like planning in advance. It is always like I always kind of do sort of think about, potential things like on the way to the stadium, like I'll sort of pre-visualize what could potentially happen. And I'll say, okay, well, for this game, you know, we're playing a team that gives up a lot of goals. So, I'm going to put myself in this position. So if the players celebrate, here's where I'll be and this and that. And I'll maybe plan out some remote cameras. Um, but as far as like a shot list, there might be, certain players that they're looking for that they need more content of. So I'll say, okay, I'm going to try to get more of this. But in general, the approach is, and it was the same way at the NBA where I learned is like, you're just trying to tell the story. You're just trying to approach it from the point of view of, okay, like react to what's happening, capture the moment. Like if one player elbows another player, like you want to capture that. If there's some tremendous dunk over two players, you're trying to get that. If there's a goal that gets scored, in a dramatic way, you're trying to freeze that moment and capture it. So there's that element, and there's also telling the story. Somebody gets ejected from a game, or somebody gets tackled really hard, or so and so scored 3 goals, they're on a hat trick. Like what do like what is the imagery that reflects that? So it, a lot of, at least from the approach that I was taught, was um, tell the story, like who, when, where, what, why, um, and try to do it in a creative way. Try to not just do the obvious, but maybe focus on some elements that people might not be necessarily paying attention to, which is directly in their peripheral. So yeah, so that's what I would say.
That's great. Well, listen, man, you are an inspiration to a lot of us,
Oh, you're an
and
inspiration, bro.
to see you come from where we all came from, and to rise to the heights that you've rose, man. There's, I forget the line. It's that Jay-Z song. All the hustlers happy to see just one of us made it, and like,
No, man.
we're all proud of you. I'm excited to see where you're going. I'm thankful that you did this for me and that I can call you as a friend.
No,
And
I
so,
I appreciate that, man. But like I'm saying, like, there've been several times, I can't even tell you, several times where I've gone to the stadium, got off the 91 onto Avalon and talked to Paul. And I'm like, there's my guy. Are you kidding me? Like, dude, no, it's you, brother. Like, I'm telling you, like, I appreciate those words, but like, no, man, you've always
thank
been uh, at the front. I remember in our class, it was like, everybody loved you, bro. And there's a reason for that, because like, like you exemplified the kind of person, the kind of people that we all, you know, are hopefully striving to be. So yeah, bro, I appreciate that a lot, but
Thank
you
you, man.
know, just know that it's also directed in your direction. So
Great. Well, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate Robert Mora being here with us. You know, again, iconic sports photographer, and I can't wait till you come out with an actual, you know, anthology, like a book of these photos, right? I'm
it's
sure that,
coming.
or do you have something like that? Are you working on it, or is
It's
it something like
coming.
I
It's
should?
coming someday. Yeah.
All right.
I still have a lot to accomplish first. So that's my,
Oh, I think you're more than 3/4 of the way there. But when that
we'll see.
happens, you know, I want to make sure that I'm there with you
For sure, brother.
to celebrate it. All
For
right.
sure. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Rob. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Let's have a great day.
Thanks. Thanks.